and Lisa Sabah. So the word says Manoah. How do we know that Lisa helped to Yamama to be free? So the Ksiv, because the pasuk says, and where it says,
Thank you.
Nikra Shemo V'Yisroel. The name of the Yovam is called V'Yisroel. Base Chalutz Hano. So V'Yisroel is mashma even Shecholatz Ba'Noah. Since he took the shoe off, Putra the whole Yisroel. She's mutter to all to get married to any man.
Except for Cohen.
Huh? Except for a Cohen.
Or a guy that doesn't want.
So the Ksiv, because the pasuk says okay. So hi Yisroel, you're saying that that's what the word in the pasuk Yisroel comes to tell you, that she's allowed to be married to any other Jew after Chalitza. Hi Yisroel lahachi udasa. It comes to tell you something else. Look at the Sonny, like we learned in a brisa. Reb Shmuel Bar Yehuda said, "What is the pasuk by Chalitza telling us? Be Yisroel, but Bezdin she Yisroel, that she has to do the Chalitza. She has to make the Chalitza in front of a Bezdin of Jews, and the Bezdin she Yisroel." Below the Bezdin shel Oivdei Chachavim, of non-Jews. Okay, so the more says the Bezdin shel Yisroel. That's what it's coming to tell you. Below Bezdin shel Oivdei Chachavim v'gerim. So the Gemara says Trei b'Yisroel ksiv. It says the word by Chalitza, by the Yavam, the word Yisroel twice in the psukim. One in the pasuk we just learned, and another one in the pasuk before that. V'yakati, the Gemara says, I still have a question. The Lisanya Amar of Yehuda, Pam achas hayinu yoshvim lifnei Rav Tarfon. Once we were sitting in front of Rav Tarfon, uboasa Yavama Lachalites, and a Yavama came in front of Rav Tarfon and the Bezdin to do the Chalitza ceremony. The Amar Lanu, and Rav Tarfon said to us after the woman had completed the ceremony, Anu Kulchem, you should all of you that are here should answer the Amru Chalutz Anoah, Chalutz Anoah. And that would seem to that's what we will need the pasuk for. So the Gemara says, Ahu v'nikra shemo nafka. It's not learned from the word Yisroel, but it's learned from the word v'nikra shemo, that the people in the Bezdin should say Chalutz Anoah, Chalutz Anoah.
So
that's where you win it. So the Mishnah said that a Yavama acquires herself through Chalitza, uvamisas hayavam, and with the death of the Yavam. The Mishnah is talking about where there's only one Yavam. So if the Yavam dies, then she can marry anybody else. If there was more than one brother, all right. So then the fact that one of the Yavam, the one Yavam died, she still has to deal with the other ones. So Manoan, how do we know that Mises Yavam she acquires herself back? So the Gemara says we learn it Mikal v'chomer, from Mikal v'chomer. Uma eshes ish, just like a married woman, shehi B'Isser Chenek, if she is mazana with somebody while she's married, her punishment is Chenek. But Misas Habal Matirasa, but if she dies, he dies, the Baal dies, matirasa. His death is matter her to marry anybody. All right. So Yavama, the Yavama, Shehi on Belav, the only punishment the Yavama gets if she doesn't marry the Yavam is a lav. She doesn't get chorus. So for sure then lo kol shekain that Mises Habal should also free the Yavam. So the Gemara says, no, you can't make a comparison between the Yavama and an Ashes Ish. Why? Because Ma le Ashes Ish shechein yotzos beget. Because we find by an Ashes Ish, a normal woman that's married and she wants to go free from her husband, she has to get a get from the husband. But a get does not work by a Yavama, right? So shechein yotzos beget, right? But that Tomer Bazu, would you say by Yavama she'enu yotzos beget, that maybe Mises Abal does not?
No, a get would not work. She'enu yotzos beget.
So in other words, since she does not go out with a get, then maybe Mises Abal that worked by an Ashes Ish does not work by the Yavam. So Hanami Yotza B'chalitza.
There are two ways.
There are two ways. She goes out B'chalitza. All right. So therefore, she could go out Mises Abal. And so Male, she said, the Gemara said, wait a minute. Male Ashes Ish Shechein Osra Matiru, by a normal Ashes Ish. How did she become Osra to every other man? Through her husband. The fact that she's married to her husband. So the Osro Matira, the one who made her Osra to everybody else, the husband, when he dies, his death is matter her to everybody else, right? But is that true by Yavama? But that's not true. Because the Gemara says, Yavam Sharila, is it the Yavam who is the one who is matter her through Misa? So okay. So the Gemara goes on and says,
he's not the one who ushered her.
He's not the one who ushered her, because the Yavam's brother was the one who ushered her to everybody else. So the Gemara says, the Gemara goes on and keeps asking, Utehei Ashes Ish Yotza V'chalitza Mikabachomer. A normal married woman should be able, we said, goes free with a get and Mises Abal. So the Gemara says she should be able to go out with chalitza for Makabachomer. Ma Yavama she'enu yotzos beget. A Yavama does not go out from the Yavam with a get, only through chalitza. So yotzos bechalitza zu an Ashes Ish sheyotza beget that does go out with a get. So I would say that maybe Einu Din sheyotza bechalitza. She should also go out bechalitza. So the Gemara says no. The Kavachomer is not good Kavachomer because Amar Kra, because the pasuk says with respect to an Ashes Ish that safer creases, that you have to give her a safer creases. Safer korsa, the safer is chorus, the woman from the husband. Ve'ein dover achar, in other words, chalitza is not korsa, does not separate a married woman from her husband through chalitza. Utehei Yavama, so therefore the Gemara is on and asks, Yavama should yotzos beget mikavachomer. The Yavama should be able to go out from the Yavam with a get from a Kalvachomer. What's the Kalvachomer? Ma Ashes Ish She'ein Yotzes B'chalitza, just like the Ashes Ish does not go out B'chalitza, but Yotzas Beget, but she does go out from her husband with a get. So Zu, the Yavama, Sheyotza B'chalitza, that does go out from the Yavam B'chalitza, Einu Din, it shouldn't be a Kalvachomer Sheyotza Beget. So the Gemara says no. Amar Kra, the pasuk says, Kacha, Kacha. Yeasa Lisha Sheyivon as lo yivnes beis achik. So the Kacha is an ikuva. In other words, Kacha tells you that Chalitza separates the Yavama from the Yavam and nothing else. Only Chalitza and nothing else. So the Gemara asks the kasha. The call heicha the ika ikuva lo darshi kavachomer. Are you telling me that because you want to learn something from a kavachomer, but you have a pasuk that tells you an ika you can, that you don't learn the kavachomer where there's an ika? The ha, I'll give you a case, and we could. Yom Kippurim, Yom Kippur. The Ksi by Yom Kippur, it says Goro. You have to use, you have the soyer, one goes to Mishal, one goes for the Chatas, and one is Mishtaleach Lazaza. How does the Kohen decide which one goes where? He does a Goro. He puts his hand in the basket, he pulls out, one says Lashem and one says Lazaza. All right? What if the Kohen went ahead, he didn't do a Goro? He said, this one is for Hashem and this one for Azaz. Would that be good? So the Gemara says, it says Goro, and it also says in another pasuk Chuka, that's a lashon chok, a lashon of ikub, that you have to do it through a Goro and not through just saying this one is the Chatos and this one is la Azaz. Vasanya. So you see that Vasanya, we learned in the Brisa that the asahu chatos, you have to make it a chatos. What does that mean? You have to make it a chatos. So the more I learns from here, hagorel osa chatos, the gorel makes it a chatos, the ain Hashem osa chatos. Just for the kohen to say, this is a chatas, you're a chatas, doesn't work. You have to, it has to be done through the Gor. Okay? Shiyocho, I might have thought, halodinu, it's a kavachomer, I can learn a kavachomer. Uma b'mokum, shelo kiddush agoro, just like in a place where the goro is not kiddush. For example, you have a pair of doves, and one of them is a chatos, and one of them is an oa. How do you decide which one is a chatos and which one is an oa? You say, this is a chatos, and this is an oa. Do you use the goro there? No. So, ma b'makom shalo kiddush agoro, kiddush Hashem, where you don't need, where the goro, you don't need to use the goro, calling it is good. So mokum shekiddush agoro, in a place like on Yom Kippur that you have to use the goro, einu din sheyakadosh Hashem. So I would think it's stronger than the goro, and therefore it should work even with where the goro works too. So Tamalomer, the pasuk says, the asahu chatos, you made it, the asahu it chatos, hagoro asa chatos, the ein Hashem asa chatos. The goro makes it a chatos, and calling it this is the chatos does not work. But the timer, the ma'ate kra. So I could learn that the reason it doesn't work is because the pasuk says the pasuk excludes it because it says v'yaseh chatos halab haki. If the pasuk wouldn't have said this miyat, I maybe darshin and kal v'chomer. I would have darshaned a kal v'chomer. So the Gemara says, "Aval pi de kasebe chuka." Even though, so the Bryce is saying, if the pasuk wouldn't have specifically said you can't use the shame, saying picking it by using the shame, I might have darshan the kal v'chomer. Even though the word that says chuka, that's the Gemara's proof. So the Gemara says, Amar Kra. Okay, so now the Gemara is back to right. So the Gemara says, Afagab by Chuka. So now the Gemara is going back to the get, this mater ayavam. Amar Kra, the pasuk says, the kosav law, safer creases. What do we learn from the law? So we learn during getting it, law tells us lishma. So we're darshaning law, her, below the yavam. So wait a minute. You're telling me that the law comes to tell you her, a normal Ashes Ish, and not the Yavama. What do we do with the Shema? Up until now, we said the cost of law means the Shema, the Ema law, the Shema. So we've already learned that drasha for the Shema. How can you do that? So the more answers, Trey law ksivi. In the parsha of Gittin, it says the cost of law twice. So one we learn for law to her and not to Yavama, and one we learn law lishma. Trade loksi. Viakate mivoile, and I could still ask you, even if you have the two law, Chad law comes to tell you lishma. V'idach, and the other one comes to tell you law below law u'lechaverta. If a man has two wives and he wants to divorce them both, so he'll write a get with both of their names in it as lishma, right? Why? Huh? One get. Why? And it's lishma, in law. Why can't he do it? So the Gemara says that you can't do it because law, v'lo lechaverta. It has to be written exclusively for her, and not for her and her chaverta.
So now we're lacking a limud.
Now we are lacking a limud, right? Of one limud of this law. So Ella Amar Kra, the pasuk says, by chalitza hanoah, the extra word noah. So what does that come to tell us? Na'al ein midiach rinan lo, that by a yavama, na'al works to free her, and nothing else. A get does not work by a yavama to free her from the oven. Behind no'al lahachi u'da'asa. Are you telling me that that's what the word no'al comes to tell you? That no'al u'midi achrina lo. V'hamavoy leik lasanya. I need it for another drasha. I need that word for another drasha, because the pasuk says v'cholza no'al lo me'al ragloi. Ainly ella na'al lo. I would think maybe only the shoe of the oven. Now shall call Adam. How do you know that you could use
Another shoe.
somebody else's shoe, another shoe for the act of Yavama. No alo implies his shoe, only his shoe. So how do you know that you could use somebody else's shoe? Talmud Lomer, because the pasuk says that second word now, and it doesn't say no alo his. It just says now, which implies you could use any boot, any boot. Okay. So now the Gemara says is Reba is inclusive and includes other boots. In Cain, so the Gemara says my Talmud Lomer no Allah. Why does it say in the first pasuk his boot, which just seems to imply only his and not anything else? So the Gemara says na'alo haroylo, that what he's using has to fit, has to be able to fit him. Prat, to exclude a boot that's godled, that's too big, that would fall off his feet when he put it on, because it's too big. Or she'ein yochel lahalach boat, because it's too big, he can't walk in it. Or prat lekatan, to exclude a shoe that is too small, she'ein chofes rov ragla, that when he puts it on, it doesn't cover most of his foot, right? That you can't do. No Allah, it means it has to be able to fit.
One more exclusion. Prat.
Right. Prat, going over to the top.
No, it has to fit him.
Has to fit him.
And they're adjustable. They have two sets of straps, so they're adjustable so that it fits. The normal minig is communities have a special boot
For
that's used for chalitza, and it's adjusted before the ceremony to fit it.
I sure know
Okay,
And it also has to be fully sold.
right.
which
And
is the
that's
next one.
the last exclusion on top of your Dalit on the base. Ulemesulayim she'ein bo ekev, to exclude a shoe that does not have a
The
sole,
under the heel.
the whole sole attached to it. Im kain nichtav kra now. So then, let just the pasuk right now, na'al without a hey, no Allah. My ha now. Why does it say the hey before? Shma no tarti. So we hear both things from here, right? That has to be that the now is only kosher for chalitza, not for an eshes, and it has to be hanal. That has to be fit.
Has to fit. The shoe has to fit.
Right. Okay. So now the Mishnah goes on. A new Mishnah. The Mishnah says, "Evet ivri nikna bekesef ubeshtar," a Jewish male servant can be acquired with kesef, with money and with a shtar. The kona atzmo, and he can acquire himself back from his master and become free, b'shanim, with years. In other words, 6 years. Normally he works 6 years. Okay, so he acquires himself b'shanim. Okay, uba yovel, and through yovel, that if yovel comes first before the 6 years, he goes out free at yovel. Ubigoroyon kesef, and through a deduction of the money that he paid, that he can give the owner the pro rata amount left after reducing what he's already worked. Yisera love Amavria, a female Jewish maidservant, has one other way of going out free that the male male servant does not the male servant does not have, and that is what that koines atzmo b'simon, that when she gets simoni naris, she automatically goes out free. Okay, so the Mishnah goes on and says that hanirtza nikna beritzia, the one who wants to stay for more than 6 years pierces his ear, and he's acquired to the Adon through the act of the ritzia, through the act of the piercing of the ear. The kones atzmo, so this male servant who has had his ears pierced can goes free when is kones atzmo beyovel, when Yovel comes, and the Mises Adon. When the master dies, he doesn't get yarshened by the children, and they keep him as a slave. He goes free. So the Nirta goes free with the Yovel or Mises Abal. So the first question the Gemara asks is, Eved Ivri Nikna B'Kesem Manon. How do we know that we can acquire a Jewish servant, a male servant, an Eben Ivri, can be acquired with Kesef, Mano? So Amr Kra, because the Pasuk says, Mikesef Miknosai. So that Pasuk is talking about if a non-Jew buys the Jew, the Eved Ivri, if a non-Jew buys him to work, the Jew can redeem himself by giving the owner,
purchases him with money.
Right. So, but since the pasuk said mikesef miknasai, so you see malamed shenikna bekesef, he can be acquired by kesef. So the Gemara says, okay, that's a valid pasuk. But what is that talking about? An Eved Ivri being acquired by a non-Jew. Ashkechen le'eved Ivri hanimcher loy v'chacham hoyu v'kal kinyanoi b'kesef. Since the only way that you a non-Jew can make a kinyan and acquire something is through kesef. There's no concept of Mashiach or any other kinyanim that we have with respect to a non-Jew. The only way a non-Jew is acquiring something is through kesef. So I would say maybe that's why it helps the kinyan of kesef of an Eved Ivri by a non-Jew, because the only kesef the only kinyan he has is kesef. Nimchar the Yisrael, but if he sold to another Jew, how do we know that kesef would acquire? So Amar Kra, so the pasuk says, not with respect to a male servant, but a female, an Amar of Riyah, the Hafta, she can't redeem herself. She can Melamed Shemegoras Pinyana V'yotza, that she can pay back the master the remaining amount of her years of service and redeem herself. So you see that from the word benifta, that she can redeem herself, that she can be acquired by kesef also. So the Gemara says, Ashkechan, we find that you've taught us that an Amma Ivri is acquired with kesef, but how do we know an Eved Ivri? We don't have a pasuk. How do we know that? Hayu umakdisha b'kesef, because he can in acquiring the Eved Ivri, he could acquire her to marry her, and he could use kesef. Mikinyanda de Kesef. Eved Ivri Minoan. How do we know an Eved Ivri can be acquired with Kesef? So the Gemara says, Amar Kra, Ki Yamacher Lacha Achicha O Ivri O Ho Ivriya, V'avodcha Sheishana. So the Pasuk uses both Ivri O Ivriya. So the Pasuk is Makish Ivri Le Ivriya. So if an Ivriya can be bought with Kesef, so an Eved Ivri through the Hakish can also be bought with Kesef. So the Gemara says, Ashkechan, that I find that an Eved Ivri Kesef works, Shemachruhu Bezdin. There are two cases a person become an Eved Ivri. One is if Bezdin sells him. If he sold something and he can't pay the article back, Bezdin can sell him to pay for the article that he stole, and he works that off. But there's another way you can become an Eved Ivri, and that's by selling himself. So the pasuk that we just learned is talking about Eved Machru Bezdin, right? Since he gets sold Bal Korcha, right? Hamocher Asmo, somebody, a Jew who wants to sell himself. How do we know that another Jew can acquire him with money? Manoan. That's the Gemara's question. So the Gemara says, Yalef, we learn a Gzera Shava from the words Socher, Socher. It says Socher. It says, right. And it says Socher by Mocher Atzmo, and it says Socher by Mocher Bezdin. So the Gemara learns the Gzera Shava that you can learn Mocher Atzmo from Mocher Bezdin. So the Gemara says, that's good according to Manda Omer, who learns the Gzera Shava Socher of Mocher Atzmo and Mocher Bezdin. Ella the Manda Omer the Lo Yalef. The Manda Omer who does not learn that Hekesh Socher Ma'ik the Maimer. How does he know that a Mocher Atzmo can be acquired with Kesef? So the Gemara answers, Amar Kro. The pasuk says by when the Eved sells himself to a non-Jew, the pasuk says v'chiyasig kisasig, when he acquires or
no, when he gets rich, when the good gets rich,
when he gets right, when he gets rich, and the Jew, the fellow Jew, is poor. So from the Kisasig we learn that most of the Vav, it says v'chi sasik. So Mav is most of our Inyan Rishon. Going back on the Inyan before that, that is the parsha of Mocher Atzmo Yisroel. So you see that the Vav adds the parsha of Mocher Atzmo to a non-Jew and joins it to the parsha of Mocher Atzmo Yisroel via Lamed, and through that Vav we can learn Elyon, a Mocher Atzmo to a Jew, mitachton from Mocher Atzmo l'oivdei chachamim. Just like Mocher Atzmo l'oivdei chachamim is with Kesef, so Mocher Atzmo to a Jew is also kesef acquires. So the Gemara said before that there is a Tana out there that does not learn this Gezeira Shava of Socher between Mocher Atzmo and Machru Besin. So the Gemara wants to know Man Tana the Loyal Socher. Who is this Tana that does not learn this Gezeira Shava? All right. So the Gemara says, Hi Tanahu. It's this Tana, the signing we learned in a brisa. The brisa says, Hamocher Atzmo, a person who sells himself, an Eved Ivri who sells himself, Nimchar L'Sheish, can be sold for 6 years. V'yeser al sheish, and the person selling, the Eved Ivri who sells himself, can sell himself for longer than 6 years. A mocher besin can only be sold for 6 years, but a mocher atzmo can sell himself for 6 years or for more than 6 years. But shemachruhu bezdin, if bezdin sells this person to become an Eved Ivri, einu dimchar el l'sheish. He's only sold for 6 years because the pasuk says, "Va'abot chosheishon." Okay, so then the Gemara says, "Hamocher atzmo einu nirtza." A person who sells himself as an Eved Ivri is not nirtza. For however long he sold himself initially, that's how long he stays to be an Eved, and he can't add on additional time by having his ear pierced. Hamocher asma eino nirtza, but shemachruhu bezdin, a person that bezdin sold nirtza, can extend this beyond the 6 years by having his ear pierced. Okay, and then the brisa goes on. Mocher atzmo ein manikim lo. A mocher atzmo, you do not give him gifts. The Torah tells us when an Eved Ivri goes free, so you don't just send him free and say goodbye, Joe. You give him from your wealth, from what you have. You give him a gift when he goes, so that when he come back, he can start again, rebuilding himself. Right? Huh? Hanek, right? So mocher atzmo ein manikim also. If he sells himself, so the master does not, when he leaves, have to give him gifts. But machru bezdin manikim lo. If he sold through bezdin, then manikim lo. Okay. So the more goes on in the brisa, hamocher atzmo ein rabba moshe lo shifru kananis. If the person sells himself to the master as an Eved Ivri, the master cannot give to him a shifra kananis to produce shvachim that the master would keep. But machruhu bezdin rabba moshe lo shifra kananis. The master can give over to him a shivcha kananis, and those kids that we born would belong to the master. Okay,
That's all the Tanakh.
That's all the Tanakh. Now Rabbi Lezer says, Zeh v'zeh, both the mocher atzmo and the nimchar yidei bezdin, ein nimchar el l'sheish. They're both the same.
There's no long-term.
There's no more than 6 years for both a mocher atzmo or a mocher bezdin. V'zeh nirtza, the din of the piercing the ear and staying for a longer time applies to both of them. V'zeh ma'anikim lo, and both of them you give The master gives them gifts when he leaves. And both of them, the Mocher Atzmo and the Machru Bezdin, Rabba Moser Law Shivcha Kananis. So my lab. So what is the argument between the Tanakama and Rebbe Lezer? The Tanakama makes differences between the Mocher Atzmo and Machru Bezdin, and Rebbe Lezer says they're both the same. So my lab isn't the argument this way. The Tanakama lo yalef sacher sacher. The Tanakama does not learn the Gzera Shava sacher sacher. So therefore, he can say that the Mocher Atzmo and the Machru Bezdin have different dins because he doesn't learn the Gzera Shava. But Rebbe Lezer, Rebbe Lezer learns the Gzera Shava. So therefore, according to Rebbe Lezer, both the Mocher Atzmo and the Machru Bezdin are exactly the same. The dinim that apply by one apply to the other. So the Gemara says, Amr of Yomi Mishmei Dabaya. The Gemara says no. The Kuli Alma Yalef Sacher Sacher. Everybody holds that from the Gzera Shava. The Hacha, the high Kroi Kamifically. But here the
dispute is in the meaning of the psukim.
The Tanakam and Rebbe Lezer are arguing in the different psukim, the meaning of the different psukim themselves. So, and since the Tanakama says you see that there's a difference between this and this, that's how you have to learn it. My time, the Tanakama, the Omer Moicher Asma Nimcher l'Sheish v'Yeshral Sheish, because Miat Rachmana, because the Torah excludes Gavi Machru Bezdin. It says the Avodcha Sheishon. By Machru Bezdin, it says he should serve him 6 years. The Avodcha would seem to imply this one serves him for 6 years, the low Mocher Atzmo, but not somebody who sells himself. So since you can learn the pasuk that way, you even though you have a Gzera Shava, you would still say there's a difference between a Mocher Atzmo and a Machru Bezdin. V'idach, so Rebbe Lezer, what does he do with this pasuk v'avodcha? So he darshans it v'avodcha to you. He should serve you. Lecha, he should serve the original master below the Yoresh, and not to his heirs who yarshin him. Okay, so the Gemara says what does the Tanakama do with that pasuk?
How does he know that the yarshin?
The yarshin, right? The idach the avodcha achriniksiv. There is another pasuk avodcha that says that, and so we can learn that the Eved does not serve the Yorish. The idach. So what does Rabbi Lezer do with that? The ahu, he says that extra pasuk lahartzos adon hudasa. It comes to tell us that the Adam has to he has to Matthias the
guy is gonna let him go.
So he says
you had him for
6 years. That's enough. Okay.
Could stop there.
Huh?
Could
all right.
Stop there.
We'll stop here. Okay.
Shkaya, excellent.
We finished where it's us, Adam. Where we finished?
We're going to stop there and then I'll pick up. Okay.
Right? The Tanya? Okay.
Hey. Excellent job, Bruce. So let's see, if I sell myself, you want to buy me?
Nobody.
You gotta
nobody
give
wants to
me a
buy you.
pretty
Nobody wants to
blonde.
buy you.
You gotta give me pretty blonde. You gotta load me up with stuff on the way out. It's a good deal.
That's how.
Mordechai, welcome back.
Thank you. Baruch Hashem.
He wants to buy you. I mean, the guy by Shady over there, Shady guy.
Oh, he would buy me?
Yeah, I mean, you heard that welcome back.
He could be my learning ethic.
Rav Mordechai,
Yeah.
that the procedure helped?
Yeah, it seems to have. I slept through the night. I didn't get up 3 times.
Maybe I should add it. I don't
It's
know.
like a fire hose, not a dribble.
I give up, go with the car.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem, it seems to have helped.
It's more and more maybe.
I give up.
It does. Don't take anything for granted.
Do you have a urologist? Zev?
Yes,
So talk to your urologist.
I'm too old for that already.
You're never too old. You still have a good 15 years in you.
Bob, don't forget your phone.
And it could be longer. Miriam lived to 106 to 126.